In a grand mansion located in the quiet corners of Lekki, Ada stood before a full-length mirror. Her reflection stared back, her face still beautiful, skin glowing softly under the bedroom lights. But her eyes held a sadness she couldn't hide. How had things come to this? Let's go back to the beginning. Ada was a beautiful young woman raised abroad, born into one of the wealthiest families in Nigeria. Her father was a powerful businessman with oil fields, estates, and international investments. There was nothing she lacked in material things, but in matters of the heart, she was weary. She had grown tired of fake love. Every man she met seemed to be drawn not to her, but to her wealth. They'd pretend to love her, only to reveal later that what they truly wanted was a piece of her fortune. The expensive cars, the lavish vacations, the powerful family name. It all became a curse. Nobody saw her, only her status. So on her 25th birthday, she made a bold decision. Her father had called her back to Nigeria to learn more about the family business and stay close to her roots. But Ada had other plans. She asked for privacy, moved out of the family estate, and rented a small one-room self-contained on the mainland, far from the luxury she was used to. She changed her name to Amina, took up a small job managing a neighborhood convenience store, and began living like an ordinary woman. No driver, no security, no expensive clothes or designer perfumes. Just her, in the simplest form, searching for something real, true love. One humid afternoon, in the middle of a slow day at the shop, Ada met him, Chuka. He was tall, well built, with warm brown eyes and a smile that could melt ice. He came to the shop to buy a bottle of water and stayed for a conversation that lasted almost an hour. He cracked jokes, talked about his job as a barber and part time Uber driver, and before he left, he made her laugh until her ribs hurt. They began to see each other more often. He'd show up at the shop just to talk, sometimes bringing suya or puff puff. Ada found herself drawn to him, not just his looks, but his heart. Chuka wasn't rich, but he was kind, thoughtful, funny. He paid attention to the small things. He treated her like a queen, even though he believed she was just a regular girl. He didn't know that Ada had millions sitting in the bank, that she owned properties in 4 different countries, that she had walked away from wealth just to find him. Months passed and the bond grew. Chuka proposed one evening after a walk in the rain. He used a simple silver ring, nothing flashy. He didn't get down on one knee. He just held her hands and said, I know I don't have much, but I have you. And if I have you, I have everything. Ada cried, not because of the proposal, but because she finally felt seen, loved. Not for her last name or her bank account, but for her soul. She said yes, even when she wanted to tell him the truth about who she really was. Something held her back, fear. She didn't want to risk the realest thing she had ever felt. They had a small wedding in a community hall in Surulere. Her family didn't attend, by her own request. She told Chuka she was an orphan. She didn't want any hints about her true identity. After the wedding, they moved into his modest apartment. But Ada couldn't hide forever. A few months into the marriage, the pressure of living a double life became too much. One night, she sat him down and confessed everything, who she really was, the truth about her wealth, and why she hid it from him. Chuka sat in stunned silence. Then slowly, he smiled and held her hand. I won't lie. I'm shocked, he said. But I don't love you because of what you have. I love you because you stayed with me when you could have had anyone else. Relieved, Ada thought the worst was over. He fell deeply in love with Amina, who later revealed she was actually Ada, a multimillionaire heiress from one of the wealthiest families in Lagos. He didn't see it coming. For a moment, the ground beneath him shifted. She wasn't who he thought she was. She was more. The truth brought pride and fear. He was proud that such a powerful woman chose him, but a voice inside him began to whisper doubts. You'll never be enough. She's just being generous. You're a project, not a partner. What can you offer a woman like this? But he said nothing. He smiled, kissed her forehead, and told her, it doesn't change anything. I love you. But inside, he began to crumble under invisible weight. His confidence slowly began to leak away. Before Chuka met Ada, whom he knew as Amina, his life had never been smooth. He grew up in Ajegunle, raised by a resilient single mother who sold pepper in the market and did odd jobs just to put food on the table. His father had walked out when he was just a toddler, leaving his mother with nothing but a broken heart and a hungry child. That absence shaped Chuka's view of life. He learned to hustle early, cutting hair, driving ride hailing apps, running errands, and doing any honest job he could find. He never had anything handed to him. Life taught him how to fight, how to protect his pride, and how to guard his emotions. Love? He didn't really believe in it. Every woman he dated either left because of his financial situation or betrayed his trust. So when he met Ada, something about her pulled him in, even though he didn't believe it at first. She was humble, quiet, always smiling. She didn't mind eating roadside food or hopping on a keke with him. He found her real. No pride, no pressure. He told himself, maybe this one is different. After they got married, and especially when Ada became pregnant, Chuka's anxiety grew. Now living in a luxurious home in Victoria Island, surrounded by things he could never afford, he felt like an outsider in his own house. He tried to be happy, but he kept wondering how long before Ada realized she didn't need him. Then came the birth. Their beautiful daughter arrived through a C-section, but complications followed. Ada developed an infection near the surgical wound. Her body began to smell, faintly at first, then strongly enough that it became difficult to ignore. Chuka couldn't take it. This happened. 9 months after their wedding, Ada gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. It wasn't an easy delivery. She had to undergo an emergency C-section after hours of labor. Chuka was nervous, pacing the hospital floor, praying silently. When the doctor finally came out and told him both mother and baby were safe, he cried for the first time in years. They named the baby Amarachi, meaning God's grace. At first, everything seemed perfect. Chuka held his daughter like she was the most precious thing on earth, whispering dreams into her tiny ears. Ada, though exhausted, beamed with pride. She felt complete. She had a family. She had love. She had peace. But things changed quickly. A few days after being discharged from the hospital, Ada noticed a strange pain around her C-section area. It started with a burning sensation, then swelling. At first, she thought it was normal. She tried to push through it, but the pain got worse, and then came the smell, a sharp, sour odor that seemed to grow stronger every day. She returned to the hospital and was diagnosed with a wound infection. The doctors assured her it could be treated, but she had to rest, stay clean, and take strong antibiotics. Back home, everything began to unravel. Ada couldn't move much. She couldn't bathe herself properly. She was in pain. The wound leaked sometimes, and despite her best efforts, the smell lingered in the room. Chuka, at first, tried to be supportive, helping her sit up, cleaning the baby, preparing simple meals. But after a few days, he began to pull away. He stopped sleeping in the same bed. Then he stopped coming into the room altogether. He started staying out late, making excuses, bringing women and watch them mock and pour water on Ada, saying she smells. One night, Ada overheard him on a phone call with one of his friends. He was standing just outside the bedroom door thinking she was asleep. Bro, I can't do this anymore, Chuka said. She smells bad, like really bad. It's disgusting, man. The whole room stinks. I can't even eat. I'll move to the guest room. I just need space. Bro, she smells like something died. I can't even sleep in the same room. It's disgusting. Ada didn't say anything, but the next morning, her eyes were different. Ada's heart broke in silence. She lay in the dark, tears sliding down her cheeks. She wasn't angry. She was hurt, deeply hurt. This man, who once said he'd love her through anything, was abandoning her at her most vulnerable. She didn't confront him. She just stopped speaking. Her laughter faded. Her smile vanished. She focused on healing, on her daughter, on surviving the loneliness. One day, she left the house. On her way, she was thinking about the whole issue, and she almost got hit by a car. The owner of the car happens to be a medical doctor. He took her to the hospital and gave a proper treatment and therapy. Weeks passed. The infection began to clear. Slowly, the smell faded, her strength returned, bit by bit. And with every step of recovery, she built a wall between herself and Chuka. Chuka began to regret everything when Ada began to heal, and he saw her strength return. She smiled again, but not at him. She laughed, but never with him. She laughed, but never with him. She moved around the house with the quiet dignity of a queen, not sparing him even a glance. She grew stronger while he felt smaller. When she handed him divorce papers, he begged, he cried, he fell to his knees. I messed up. I was scared, Ada. I didn't know what to do. She replied with calm clarity. You weren't supposed to know what to do. You were supposed to be there. He tried to apologize, but his words sounded hollow. Ada, I didn't mean what I said. You said it, she replied quietly, and you meant it in the moment. That's enough. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't scream or throw anything. That silence was worse. One morning, she stood in front of him, clean, glowing again, holding their daughter, and said calmly, I forgave you already, but I can't unhear your words, and I can't forget how you made me feel when I needed you most. She left him that same week. Ada moved out quietly. She didn't take much with her, just her baby, a few clothes, and her dignity. She didn't return to her father's mansion, not yet. Instead, she chose to stay in a small apartment she purchased under a different name years ago. She wanted peace. She wanted healing. And most of all, she wanted to rebuild herself on her own terms. Motherhood was hard, but it gave her purpose. Every cry from her baby reminded her that she had something to live for, someone to love purely, without fear of betrayal. Slowly, she found her rhythm again. She went back to work, managing her foundation that helped young widows and single mothers. This time she did it openly, as Ada Eze, the heiress. No more hiding. Her story inspired many. People saw her grace, her strength, and the honesty in her voice when she spoke at conferences or women's events. They think money solves everything, she once said in an interview. But pain is universal, love is sacred, and healing is personal. Her face appeared in magazines again, but not as a rich man's daughter, as a woman who rose from emotional wreckage and stood tall, stronger than ever. Meanwhile, Chuka's world began to shrink. At first, he pretended like everything was fine. He told his friends Ada just needed space. He lied to himself, saying she'd come back. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. She didn't return. He tried calling. She didn't pick. He sent messages, long broken ones filled with regret and apology, but they were left unread. He begged her family for a second chance. Her father refused to even let him pass the gate. His small business began to suffer. He couldn't concentrate. Clients noticed the sadness in his eyes. He missed Amarachi's first words, her first steps, her first birthday. He had failed not just as a husband, but as a man. One day, he found an old picture of their wedding day. Ada was smiling, holding his hand like he was the only one in the world. He stared at it for hours, tears soaking into the frame. He knew now, love isn't proven in good times, it's proven in the hard ones. And he had walked away from her when she needed his strength the most. 2 years later, their daughter was enrolled in a prestigious private school. Chuka was allowed to pick her up on weekends. Co-parenting was formal, cold. Ada never said more than necessary, but something had changed in Chuka. He was quieter now, humble. Every time he saw Ada, he looked at her with a kind of sacred guilt, like a man forever carrying a wound. He never asked for reconciliation. He didn't think he deserved it. But one Saturday, as Ada watched him play gently with Amarachi, laughing genuinely for the first time in a long time, a small part of her heart softened. She didn't trust him with her love anymore, but she could see the change. Pain had taught him what love was supposed to be. That evening, she said, "You can come for her birthday next month if you want." Chuka looked at her, surprised. "Thank you." Ada nodded, turned away, then paused. "And Chuka, yes, don't ever let any woman suffer in silence like I did again." He nodded slowly. "I won't. Not ever again." It had been 6 years. 6 years since the day Ada walked out of that apartment holding Amarachi, with tears in her eyes and silence in her heart. 6 years since she had to learn how to breathe again without the weight of betrayal pressing on her chest. And 6 years since Chuka realized what it meant to lose not just a woman, but a soul who had once trusted him with her whole life. Now, here they were, back in each other's presence but worlds apart. Ada was radiant, not because of the clothes or jewelry, but because peace now lived in her. Her laughter was lighter, her eyes brighter. She was a woman who had not only healed but bloomed. Chuka saw it the moment she stepped out of her car, holding Amarachi's hand, arriving for the school's father-daughter dance. The event had been expanded this year to include mothers, stepfathers, uncles, anyone who had stepped in when fathers stepped out. And standing beside Ada was Tari, a soft-spoken, intelligent architect from Port Harcourt who had become Ada's quiet companion over the last 2 years. He had never tried to replace Chuka, never tried to force his way in. He had simply been present, helping, listening, supporting. Where Chuka once ran from her weakness, Tari respected it. Where Chuka distanced himself from her pain, Tari leaned in and held space for it. Tonight, he had come not as a date, but as someone who had become family. Chuka watched from a corner of the hall, dressed simply, holding a rose for his daughter. His heart beat strangely, an ache that wasn't jealousy, but something deeper. It was finality, the full acceptance that she was gone, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, completely. He saw the way Amarachi looked at Tari with affection, not confusion, not conflict, just comfort. And he knew this man had stepped into the role Chuka had abandoned, and he had done it with grace. The principal tapped the mic. "We'd like to thank all our fathers, stepfathers, and father figures for showing up tonight, and for every mother who played both roles. Your strength does not go unnoticed." Applause filled the hall. Ada looked over and met Chuka's eyes for the first time that evening. He walked up to her slowly. Tari nodded respectfully and stepped aside. Chuka looked at her, then at Amarachi, who was now dancing with her friends. "You look happy," he said softly. "I am," she replied. There was a pause, a deep one that carried years of love, hurt, guilt, healing, and closure. "I never stopped loving you," Chuka whispered. Ada looked at him, eyes warm but steady. "I know, but sometimes love isn't enough." He smiled, tears threatening. "I just want to say thank you for everything, for raising her, for forgiving me, even if you never said the words." She reached out, touched his hand gently. "I did forgive you. I just couldn't trust you with my heart again." He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Then softly, "Do you love him?" Ada glanced toward Tari, who was helping Amarachi fix her little tiara. "I do," she said, "but it's different. It's calm, gentle, no drama, no chaos, just peace." Chuka smiled sadly. "You deserve that. You always did." And in that moment, standing in the middle of a school hall, with music playing softly in the background and children laughing all around them, Chuka let her go, not out of bitterness but with love, Real love, the kind that says, I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me. Chuka left. He moved back to the mainland, not because he was broke. Ada gave him a settlement, but because he needed to find himself again. Months turned to years. He started therapy. At first, he didn't want to open up, but eventually he did. He spoke about his childhood, his fears, his need to always appear in control, and how that control failed him when he needed to be vulnerable. He realized something hard. He didn't lose Ada because of the infection. He lost her because he was too weak to love her when she wasn't perfect. With time, he started a business, his own barber shop chain, Chuka's Touch. He trained young men from the streets, gave jobs to ex-convicts, and started speaking to young fathers about responsibility, vulnerability, and the strength of emotional presence. The end.